What is up, ladies and gentlemen of the Online Jamily? This, of course, here is Jamiroquai 2000 with Episode 2, The Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai. Welcome to this new series, of course, entitled The Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai. Given the recent influx of new music fans into the Online Jamily or the online Jamiroquai fan base ecosystem, from either the recurring Jamiroquai memes to purely musical discovery, I thought it was the right time to write and record a brand new series here on my YouTube channel, looking at everything about the information about the band Jamiroquai, from an introduction to the band members, to the music, to everything that goes along with over 30 years of Jamiroquai, and looking at the band members, the influences, and everything. Here in Episode 2 of this new series of the Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai, I'm going to be discussing the musical influences of the band Jamiroquai and the musical genre stylings that Jamiroquai's sound inhabited and evolved over the last 30 years of the band's history. So we're going right now into Section 1 of this second episode of the Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai, looking at the musical influences of Jamiroquai. Now, Jamiroquai's music is generally termed as acid jazz, funk, disco, soul, house, and R&B. Their sound has been described by J.D. Considine as having a anything-goes attitude and an approach that leaves the band open to anything. Tom Moon wrote that the band embraces old-school funk, Philly soul strings, the crisp keyboard sounds of the 1970s, and even hints of jazz fusion, blending those with agitated, aggressive dance rhythms to create an easygoing feel that looks both backward and forward into musical history. Ben Cesario facetiously commented that J.K. and Toby Smith, the songwriters, studied Intervision's era Stevie Wonder carefully, and just about everything about the group has recorded sounds that sound like, in fact, it was played by Stevie Wonder himself. J.K., of course, is the principal songwriter of Jamiroquai. When composing, he sings melodies and beats for the band members to transcribe into their instrumentation. The band relies on analog songs such as the running keyboards to a vintage effects pedals to get the warmth and clarity of the instruments. Perry Gettleman of the Orlando Sentinel described J.K.'s vocals as not identifiably male or female or black or white. Other writers said Toby Smith's keyboard arrangements were psychedelic and soulful, and compared Stuart Zender's bass playing to the work of Marcus Miller. Wallace Buchanan on Didgeridoo was met with either praise or the annoyance of the critics. Now, J.K. and the band members of Jamiroquai have been just influenced by a myriad of musical artists, including Roy Ayers, Herbie Hancock, Lou Donaldson, Grant Green, Sly Stone, Gil Scott-Heron, and hip-hop and its culture. He was introduced to much of these influences in the mid-1980s by the British club DJs. And quoting J.K., I'd seen into Stevie and all that. Then I got into the JBs, Maceo Parker, and the Meters, the more raw, funky thing. I've never really heard so many instruments in one go. I decided around that time to try to make music built around those loose, open grooves. In the 2003 compilation titled Late Night Tales Jamiroquai under Azuli Records also contain a selection of those band's late 1970s R&B, disco, and Quiet Storm influences. Kay and the group were also been compared a lot to Stevie Wonder, with critics accusing the band of copying black artists. In response, Jay said, quote, "We are never here to hide our influences. The band references them as Kay maintained Jamiroquai's own sound." Quoting J.K., "It's about the style of the music you aim for, not the exact sound. If you sample Barry White and Sly Stone, it's one thing. To get their spirit is different." As a prominent component of the London-based funk and acid jazz movement of the 1990s, writer Kenneth Prouty said few acid jazz groups have reached the level of visibility in the pop mainstream as London-born Jamiroquai. The success of the 1996 single Virtual Insanity led to the climax of the 1970s soul and funk and early acid jazz artists had initiated. The band was also credited for popularizing the didgeridoo, which is also known as the yidaki, which is, of course, the Aboriginal instrument that Wallace Buchanan of Jamiroquai played prevalently during their live tours. Artists who mentioned the group as an influence include Chance the Rapper, SZA, Kamal Williams, The Internet, Calvin Harris, Tyler the Creator, and many, many other artists. According to Tony Fairsides of The Guardian, quote, "Jamiroquai's musical prowess goes largely ignored. While the band has received plaudits from American heavyweights such as Quincy Jones, Morris White of Earth, Wind & Fire, Jamiroquai fight to fight to be taken seriously in the UK. Writing for the same newspaper, Ian Gittins said that the group, quote, have long been shunned by music's tastemakers for perceived nastiness and have shown their utter disregard for the critical snobbery by getting bigger and bigger. Cesario gave a negative review of the band's discography in the Rolling Stone album guide in 2004, finding much of their material to be identical. Now we're going to be moving into the second section of the second episode of The Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai, looking at the musical genre stylings of Jamiroquai. Now, Jamiroquai's music over the past 30 years originally came from the acid jazz, but slowly evolved more towards a more mainstream, accessible, and friendly disco dance in the latter half of their discography. But their musical touchstone a lot was on R&B, funk, and soul, as a preface at the beginning of this episode of The Beginner Guide to Jamiroquai, permutating itself into times with every passing album, from Traveling on Moving, marking the main beginning genre shift of their sound from with musical dabbles in dub, funk, and reggae influences. But once they got into 2001's album A Funk Odyssey and later on into 2017's album Automaton, experimentalism with electronic musical influence from the emerging electronic musical scene of the UK, Europe, and the United States, they already originally dabbled in the 1999 album Synchronized, started to take the forefront and making them lead to the musical charge ahead of many other established pop bands of their musical period. A majority of the musical end result in this period was exciting to new members of the Jamly, but modestly besmirched to the old order of the Jamly. But like anything new, lots of repeated listenings to this new musical outlet from Jamiroquai would be needed by them to pick up on the embedded musical brilliance that was laid beneath all of this new musical goodness. Where Jamiroquai goes musically after the precipice of them reaching their 30th year together as a band is yet to be seen, but rest assured, it will be exciting to see and hear what the band and its band members can bring to the Jamly forward into the 9th studio album that will speculatively be finished, mixed, and released sometime in 2024 into 2025. I hope everybody in the Jamly enjoyed the second episode of The Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai. And coming up next time, I will be looking in episode 3 of The Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai, looking at the many, and I do mean many band members of Jamiroquai, from past to present, the current to former, of Jamiroquai, who made the invaluable contributions to the band to their sound over the past 30 years of their musical history. Thank you again, everybody, for the support. I hope you're enjoying this series of The Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai and are picking up a lot of great information about the band, and it further enriches your exploration of the amazing 30 years of Jamiroquai in the musical and pop mainstream scene. As always, this is Jamiro 2000. Be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to ding the bell on your YouTube to stay up to date on all the latest new content coming from the Jamiro 2000 YouTube channel as we go straight into the 2023 European Festival Tour Season 4 Jamiroquai, which I will, of course, be covering here on my YouTube channel and, of course, on the twin subreddits of the online Jamly at r/Jamiroquai and r/Reddit Jamly. As always, this is Jamiro 2000, and I'll see you again really soon with more Jamiroquai-related content here on the Jamiro 2000 YouTube channel. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you again for the support, and I'll see you around.